Hello, this is Natalie Frisk. I am Tim Amor. I'm the pastor at First Mennonite Church here in Nebraska. And Natalie, where are you?
I am in Hamilton, Ontario, which is, depending on the day, about 45 minutes of a drive away from Toronto.
Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? You are a pastor, you are an author. Let us learn to know you, as they say in some Mennonite circles.
That sounds great. Well, yes, I am a pastor at the Meeting House, which is part of the Be in Christ Church, is what we call the Brethren in Christ Church up in Canada. I am the curriculum pastor, so I oversee the curriculum development for kids and youth from birth till the end of high school. And I'm also one of our campus or parish pastors in a city called Brantford, which is about 100,000 people. The city, not the church. Yeah, and I'm also
that really grew. You got the whole city.
someday. I'm married to Sam, and we met at university, the same place where I met Tim. Sam and I I've been married for going on 12 years, and we have an awesome 9.5-year-old daughter who's pretty great too. So yeah, and I am, yes, you're right, I'm an author. I wrote a book that came out a year and a half ago called Raising Disciples, How to Make Faith Matter for Our Kids.
We're going to do a bit of a flash round so people can get to know you.
Okay.
I want you to answer as quickly as you can.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So, cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Ooh. Books or movies?
Books.
Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
Justin Bieber, a Canadian, I'll add, or Taylor Swift?
Cool. Taylor Swift, I guess. Don't hate me.
That was a good sound. So Coca-Cola or Pepsi?
Coca-Cola.
Hockey or baseball?
Baseball.
Whoa.
I know.
Oh, they might deport you. You have to be careful.
They might, yeah. It's been discussed already, actually.
there's a petition. Yeah. Cake or pie?
Cake.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Salty or savory?
Salty.
Last one, Disney Plus or Netflix?
Oh, come on. If they got married and had a nice little baby, that would be the best result. I think I'm going to go with Netflix.
Netflix. Oh.
I know, I'm surprised too that I said that.
You know, you never really know until you're stuck.
Yeah.
All right, so what was now you have to think, this will be more recent. What was the last song you listened to?
My daughter's been singing the Carly Rae Jepsen, also a Canadian artist, song Call Me Maybe a whole bunch, because she's a preteen girl that likes to sing. So probably her singing Call Me Maybe, which isn't necessarily exactly like the real rendition of Call Me Maybe. Some words vary.
As the kids maybe would have called it if it came out in the last few years. Yeah. The last TV show you watched. So TV's broad. So like anything that's like a shorter show, not a movie.
Probably WandaVision. Probably the last episode of WandaVision.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Yeah. So good. So
I've seen it as well, but
yeah. Oh, yeah.
This one, okay, you have to think a little bit further back, maybe. What was the last movie that you saw in a movie theater?
Oh, a movie theater? I don't even know.
Do they still exist? I don't.
Wow. Can I phone a friend, and by that I mean, can I shout out my husband?
Yeah, sure. You can jump into the call too. That's fine. Second.
Hey Sam, what do you think was the last movie we saw in a movie theater? He remembers things like this. He said Avengers, and I believe him.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's why we get married, because we can only remember half the things and do half the things, and we need someone else to do the other half.
Yeah, or the most recent Star Wars. It was one of those two.
One of those two.
Oh, those were good days.
Popcorn, other stuff. Yeah, those were fun times.
Sticky floors. I even miss those. No, I don't.
The last thing you ate.
An Egg McMuffin. That felt like a confessional. That felt like
What was the last book that you finished reading?
the last book I finished reading. Well, I mean, I know you don't mean this kind of book, but I was reading to one of the kids in my parish
Oh,
via Zoom. I just read That's How Much God Loves You. Isn't that cute? So I just read that to her, but probably actual um book substantive. Oh, would be Eugene Peterson's The Pastor.
oh, was that your first time reading it?
It was.
What did you think?
I love him.
Yeah.
He's just like cozy.
Right. So you have now ended up as a pastor, right?
I did.
Why? How did that happen? What did you do wrong? What can we teach people so we don't make the same mistakes?
Yeah. I try to replay those steps all the time to figure out where things turned, you know? No, honestly, like I can't help but just say that like I've followed God's breadcrumbs in my life. Um I don't even truthfully, I don't even know how I landed as a pastor specifically, other than to say that I can recognize now the call on my life, my whole life, into pastoral ministry, but not recognizing that's what it was. Even though I grew up in what would call itself an egalitarian setting.
Meaning
n-
for those of us who aren't as well educated as you.
that women are welcome and appreciated into leadership roles in the church. Um, I, I there were no young women as I was growing up who were encouraged to do so. I was on a student leadership team with 5 people, 3 of whom were guys, and there were 2 of us who are females. And the 3 guys were all encouraged to go into ministry, and the 2 females weren't. And we had an awesome youth pastor. It wasn't anything, about him, but had I been encouraged early on, then I think the route would have been a little bit more direct, but not necessarily better. So in my time through, I was going to go into journalism, and then I was going to teach. And even though I didn't have a teaching degree, um, a Christian school let me teach there for a little while. And
That's
that
that's
happens.
the way, right?
That happens. This is the way. Then I realized, oh, I don't really like the classroom, but I was also coaching basketball. I had a team of girls who I was coaching. It was a Christian school, so we were also doing like team Bible studies and stuff, and I was loving that. And I said to a friend of mine who also went to university with us, I just said, like I'm not loving my experience in the classroom, but I absolutely love journeying with students. I wish that was a job. And he was like, Natalie, it is a job. That's like a youth pastor. And hey, the meeting house is hiring somebody in their student ministries department. It's like half admin, kind of half a pastoral thing. You should apply. And immediately I was like, yep, I should apply. That's where I'm supposed to be. And so I kind of on ramped into that and started my pastoral trajectory. Was credentialed and then ordained. So I've been ordained, I don't know, for at least 6 or 7 years, I think. Maybe more than that now. With what is the BIC.
Yeah.
Mhm. And here I am.
What would you say the best part of being a pastor is in one sentence?
The best part of being a pastor is, I think just like being invited into the spiritual journey of other people to hear about places where they're vulnerable, and like it's very humbling that people trust you in that way. This is a really long run-on sentence, by the way, and that they
If it
are.
wasn't, I would question whether you're actually a pastor.
Yeah, I graduated with an English degree, so helpful. But yeah, I think it's that journeying with people through all of their seasons, and um, and praying with people. Honestly, I actually really love just praying with people, which sounds, I don't know what, but Brian Zahnd once said that a pastor's job is to pray and teach others how, and that's really stuck with me. It's been a really profound statement for my experience as a pastor.
What's the worst or the hardest part of being a pastor?
hmm hmm I'd love to know your answer to this, Tim. The hardest part of being a pastor is perhaps, I'll be real for a second because I haven't been this whole time. So I have a general anxiety disorder, and so in truth, sometimes answering the phone, it's gonna sound so ridiculous, but sometimes answering the phone is a huge stretch for me. I am I'm extroverted. I love being around people. I love talking to people like this or on the phone, texting, fine. But there's certain days where, because of that, it's really hard for me to pick up the phone or have like the energy or the drive or ability to even do this. But it's not often. But it's like on those days, the worst part about being a pastor is being a pastor. Um, and that just is.
How did you end up an Anabaptist then? Like, what was your background? And then now you've abandoned that for this radical
Yeah.
revolutionary.
Well, I've always been radical, so that's just because I was a kid of the '80s. I was super rad. Um,
The punk
so
rock of Christianity, as I'm trying to push it, though.
yeah, I like that. I'll
Too many
contribute.
hymnals, maybe, but we're gonna get there.
So I grew up Presbyterian in the morning, and Pentecostal at night. My dad was Presbyterian growing up, and as a family, we would all go together to the Presbyterian church every Sunday morning, and we're part of things at the Presbyterian church. It was down the street from our house, so it was local. Um, and then my mom grew up Pentecostal, and I have my grandfather was a Pentecostal minister. There's a kind of a heritage there, going back a couple of generations. And so in the evenings, my mom and us kids would go to the Pentecostal church. My dad thought it was weird. Uh, and so,
Only because it was. Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't totally wrong. I mean, there's some great things, some lovely
Yeah.
things. There was some weird stuff. Um, and so I used to call myself Presbycostal growing up. Yeah, which is fun to say. Um, and so I always kind of asked questions about different parts of the theology. That was kind of always within my wiring. And I remember in high school, I leaned more towards being a Pentecostal because all my friends were there. It's where my youth group was, all that kind of a thing. But I remember actually reading through the statement of faith for the Pentecostals, and I got really stuck on certain things. And I remember circling them and making notes and asking our pastor about them and not really getting sufficient answers, and somebody in pastoral ministry saying, yeah, I don't even believe that either, but they were, and so I really, it was an interesting little
Why
journey.
are you doing this, guys? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah,
Whenever I hear that, I'm like, then why? Why?
yeah. Why?
It depends.
So then I went on this super weird journey where I went to university at a reformed Christian university, and while there, went to a Reformed Baptist church that was like more conservative and fundamental than anything I had experienced thus far. And so I like to say I rebelled like backwards into like, yeah, just more conservative and fundamentalist. So then after that, I in that experience, I remember I was helping it with their youth group, and one of the youth pastor, I can't remember what he was actually called, he said, Natalie, I really feel like you're not fully utilizing your giftings. What would you like to be doing where you could really be using your gift? And I probably knew in the back of my mind that they were not okay with women in leadership in that church congregation, but it wasn't ever real for me. So I said, I would love to do a teaching for the youth sometime. Like, that would be so exciting to me. And he was like, oh, uh, don't really let women teach. Well, teaching youth, you could teach in Sunday school to the kids, but not to the youth. I'd have to talk to the elders. I don't know. I don't think.
There's that magic line where they become an
Yeah,
adult, you know.
right? Or a person.
Yeah.
When are they a person? Are they a person yet? Um, and so I was like, whoa, okay. Whoa. Oh, I don't feel like that doesn't. And so I went on this journey of figuring all that out, and ended up in this like total antithetical move to going to the meeting house, which met in a movie theater. So I went from this church where literally I had to wear a skirt every Sunday, um, like totally
That is also why
formal.
I didn't go to that church. So we lived in the same area. I was uninterested in wearing a skirt every Sunday.
You would have looked a little bit, I don't know what. I
Well,
just
I could make it work. It's just a comfort
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. It depends on the skirt. This can be comfortable. Anyway, went from there to church and a movie theater where, the pastor that's teaching is this guy wearing jeans and like a sloppy hoodie and long hair. And I was like, I don't know about this. But then I sat through the teaching and I was like, wow, this is fabulous. Who are these guys? I think the first teaching I really sat through and fully heard was a message on simplicity. And I had never in my entire, and I was like a 3, 4 times a week church goer as a kid and youth. And hearing about simplicity was like, whoa, what is this? And so I started down a bit of a rabbit trail of looking into Anabaptist theology. And my biggest like hiccup in entering into Anabaptism was actually the peace theology, which is crazy to me now because I'm a pretty big peace advocate and feel quite strongly about the peace position and see that in Jesus' teachings. And it was one of the elders of a home church at the meeting house who I was like, just war. Like I would get in debates about just war and all this kind of stuff. I was so obnoxious. And then I say was, I don't know if it's gotten better. And yeah, and one of the elders said to me, you know what, Natalie, I just want to invite you to read the Sermon on the Mount and take time to just really look at what Jesus has to say about loving your enemies and, just look, sit in his words a little bit. And I was like, okay. And I did. And then I looked at, fuller gospel accounts and stuff that Jesus had to say about um, violence or being, blessed are the peacemakers, like all of these things. And I was convinced. It was like a switch flipped. And that was when I would say Anabaptism or the meeting house as well as our denomination really became my home. And it was like a welcome home moment. It was like, so I found Anabaptism and I gotta tell you, it's been pretty great.
So Natalie, you wrote this great book, Raising Disciples. How did that happen? What led you to all of a sudden be like, oh, I should write a book about this?
Yeah. Okay, so here's my scoop. I've always been a writer. I've always written. When I became a youth pastor, I started realizing that I had parents asking me some of the same questions over and over again. And so what I would start to do is just jot down responses and keep a file. I just kept a file going of common questions and answers. And or like I'd write an email response to someone and I'd be like, oh, I might keep that. You never know. Copy and paste, whatever. Um, so when
That's actually how I do all my sermons now. I just
yeah, exactly. So what had happened was something so bizarre and cool. Um, I had become the curriculum pastor at the meeting house, and at some juncture along the way, Greg Boyd came up to the meeting house. Gregory A. Boyd, pastor of Woodland Hills Church.
Oh, Gregory Abel.
Yes.
Yeah, with the lip initial. Now I know who you're talking about.
Prolific writer and theologian. Anyway, I kind of got to know him a little bit, and he was putting on this big conference down at his church for the launch of his new massive work, Crucifixion of the Warrior God, with the popular book that he had called Cross Vision. It was called the Cross Vision Conference. And in talking to him, he said, "Hey, you should come down and do a workshop on how to kind of teach the cruciform hermeneutic to kids." And I was like, cool, okay. So in the meantime, I guess, not knowing this at all, the acquisitions editor from Herald Press, she contacted me and said, "Hey, I hear you're coming down to Minnesota for this conference, and I've read a ton of stuff that you have been writing. I'd be curious to know if you wanted to get together to talk about the possibility of a book." And I was like, what? Like, I have friends that have written books and they try to get published, and they try to get it out to different places, and here was a publishing company coming to me, which like absolutely floored me, because I'm like, who am I? I'm just this kid up in Toronto. And so I had breakfast with her, and by the end of breakfast had like a kind of a pitch on the table for a book. They gave me a contract less than a month later. They gave me a year to get the full manuscript together, and there you have it in your hand, the result, which was really exciting. And honestly, like, I've got to say, and I always say this when I'm talking about writing this book, it strikes some people as odd that like I'll just put the cards on the table. I'm 36 years old and I've written a book about parenting, which is weird, and I fully see the weirdness in it, because it's like I've actually written stuff in the book about when your kids become parents, like getting kids, like young adult and beyond. And I recognize that's not like me speaking from experience, but what I've done is I have curated all of the best wisdom that I have received from different people in different walks of life, and the result is that book. That's not my wisdom, it's actually the shared wisdom of some really amazing people that I have had the privilege of being part of their lives, and them a part of mine through the years. It was a community effort. I just was lucky enough to get my name on it.
That's great. And so local bookstores, online, Menno Media. Our last question, someone's a new parent. You can give them one kind of word, one line of advice. What is it? Pray.
I recognize that can sound really simplistic, and I recognize that can sound, I think in our collective culture, we get to this place of, oh, I can't do anything, and so I'll pray. But actually prayer, I think, is like the greatest thing we can do. Like front and roll, like we're communicating to the creator of the universe. That's not nothing. And praying for our kids from the time they're in the womb all the way through their whole lives through, that is the one thing that we can always do for them that is always going to be a benefit. And so I would say pray from the time they are an embryo until the time that you leave this earth. That's what you can do for your kids.
Great. Well, thank you. It was good getting to know you in this less formal kind of way, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say in the more formal presentations of these ideas.
So, thanks, Tim. It was both fun and weird.
You'd be surprised how often I hear that. Yeah.